Hello, everybody, and welcome to our What's New in Revit 2026 webinar today. We are very excited to be here with AIA Florida for this webinar. And before we go ahead and get started with our presentation, we have Crystal here who is going to be going ahead and saying a few words on the AIA Florida side. Go ahead, Crystal.
Thanks, Alan. Again, my name is Crystal Rollis. I'm the Director of Membership and Marketing at AI Florida. And I just wanted to, first of all, thank Alan and Sandra and James for this great partnership we have in presenting what's new in Revit 2026 today. And just let you guys know if you need anything during the presentation for your continuing education learning unit, please let us know. It is optional for a certificate of completion for AIA members, but if you would like a certificate of completion, please email Hillary Gill, and it's at HGILL@AIAFLA.org, and we will take care of that for you. But just thank you guys so much for attending, and thank you, DD SCAD, for this partnership.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Crystal. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So James, go ahead and jump over to that next slide. Okay, so all attendees will be muted for this presentation. You can go ahead and send us your questions via the questions box or the chat box throughout the presentation, and we will be doing a Q&A session at the very end. Do also provide us your AIA numbers via the questions box for continuing education credit. A lot of times we wait until the very end to send those and we're all scrambling. So do go ahead and send those to us now, just so we can go ahead and get it out of the way. AIA number and your name ideally, as sometimes those names are different than what's being displayed here on our side. This webcast will be recorded and you should be able to find that in your email a little bit later today, as well as on our website and our YouTube channel. And last but not least, for any questions, concerns, anything of that nature, you can give us a call at 305-445-6480 or email us at info@ddscad.com. All right, without further ado, James, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much, Alan, for the introduction. Let's go ahead and begin by taking a look at some of the key business values that are being offered through Revit 2026 update. While some of them being the new design capabilities, some enhanced modeling quality, accuracy capabilities, increased project efficiency, better decision-making, improved collaboration and interoperability, and better documentation, just to name a few. In the new feature enhancements for the core for Revit 2026, we see that we have a few of them. We will only be actually focusing on the yellow highlighted ones, with the exception of the very first one, and we'll talk about that as soon as we start with the presentation of the actual enhancements. But as you can see, there's quite a list. We will be looking specifically today at the title block scale overrides, show imported CAD files in the manage links dialog box for the core features. For the architectural features, as you see, once again, it's a huge amount of improvements, but we will be looking at Topo solid subdivision enhancements. We will be also looking at the allowable compound structure without 4 layers, which is very exciting, very interesting to actually look at. We have also some new additions or modifications, so let's call it additional options for creating walls, one of them being by room and the other one by segment. Okay, following that, we have the customizable layer priorities in compound structures, which we'll see how that works. It's kind of a little strange, but still interesting. In continuation, we have sheet collections, custom parameters, and schedules. These happens to be about some of the some additional parameters that have been actually hardwired into your Revit. And once we do that, we'll see also some view to sheet position and automated placement, okay, which allows us to actually go ahead and populate our sheets a lot better and a lot more efficiently and a lot more incoherent, or rather in a more organized way that would make a lot more sense for the project. And last but not least, we will be looking at the enhanced family substitution for Twinmotion, which is actually something very interesting, and also actually accelerates our content creation for the Twinmotion aspect of or presentation, which is really what Revit Twinmotion really is through Revit for within Twinmotion for Revit. So sorry. Without any further ado, we'll see also some enhancements for the structural features, which we're not going to be showing any of because this particular presentation is more focused on architecture. And we also have quite some extended improvements also for the MEP section of Revit. Now, this is just a partial list of some of the improvements. If you want to go ahead and see the whole list, the best thing would be to actually take a look at the new features of Revit, of the Revit 2026 at the Autodesk site. Okay, moving forwards, we now come to see some core features for Revit 2026, starting with the view reference enhancements. Okay, there is one thing that due to time constraints, we will not be seeing a demo on this particular slide, but we will be placing some blogs in our blog site for you to actually look at more specifically. And I think the more important one at this point, because the instance-based view reference labels, which is actually what the actual animation that you're looking at is showing, is rather easy to understand, but we'll talk about it a little bit more in a couple of seconds. The shared parameters, though, in the view references family labels, that's a little involved because it's actually talking about shared parameters. And to set that up, it's a little bit more, as I said, time consuming. And that being the case, we decided to go ahead and create a blog more specifically about that we can then go ahead and not only show you how it works, but not only show you the actual, parameter, but also show you how it works and how to set it up. Very well. With that, let's go ahead and move forward. And we start with the title blocks overrides. Now in Revit 2026, the title block family scale parameter can also be edited to read as it should or on all of the sheets as required by your office standards. No longer are we stuck with the parameter default value of varies when there are multiple views in multiple scales on any particular sheet, as you see here. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look and see how that's done. Let's go ahead and open our title blocks, or rather this particular file that actually shows us. And what we're talking about is this part in here. As you can see right now, as it says, as indicated on view, that is something that I actually did myself. And to actually verify this, I can actually select this and go ahead and select the edit type. By selecting the edit type dialog box, okay, you'll see that there is one parameter that is editable here in the properties, okay, which is the very new scale override parameter. As I have indicated, it says as indicated on the view, okay? And this is what I decided would be probably the default value. This could be where you put the default value that you need when it needs to be adherent to your office standards. Now that we see where it is and how you can change it, let's go ahead and see how it actually works. It's indicated that the views vary. Basically, that is what it says as indicated on view. That is indicated. Why? Now, how do I know? How can I prove it? Well, if we look at the scales of each one of these views, you see that this one is at 3/4, obviously, and this one is at 1.5. We have 2 at 1.5, okay? And we have this one up here at 1/8. So in these alone, we have 3 different scales. And here we have a 4th scale, which is actually a 12 inch equals a foot, all right? And more than anything, you have to remember that this is actually because this is an image. So it's kind of hard to scale that, all right? So how do we actually do that? Well, to be honest with you, this is actually done at the family level. So let's go ahead and select the actual title block, go to the edit family. And in the edit family, as you can see, there's a couple of things that got changed. For example, there are dimensions here happening, okay? As you can see there and there. And there's a label already here. This one was created by myself in order for me to show you where it goes and how you can actually place it. And not only that, but if you select, I selected and I go to edit label, I also wanted to show you how exactly it is that you actually place it, or rather invoke that particular parameter that we're looking at. Okay, there is a list of parameters right here in the edit label. Okay, some are for sheets and some are for multi-leader tags. Okay, what we really are looking at now is the sheets. And in the sheets here, we're looking at this section in here. This particular label that is selected is actually assigned to scale and is with a default sample value of 1/8. So if there are no objects in the particular, or rather no views in the particular sheet, it's going to show this, or some of maybe whatever it is that you define that you want to actually show. Okay, let's go ahead and see how that was made. Let's go ahead and cancel first here. All we wanted to do is see how that works. So we'll go over here to the create. We'll go to the label. And in label, the first thing to do is, where is it placed? I'm just going to place it here for the sake of argument. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select the specific attribute or that this label is going to be carrying, which is the scale. Okay, and by default already it's telling me it's going to use the 1/8. I'm going to go ahead and leave that. Okay, if you don't like the way that this is actually set up, okay, you can always select the a particular label and go ahead and switch whatever justifications, which is really what the alignments are, you're going to be using for that label. I prefer to have it on a right. By default, usually it comes in on left like that, but I had changed this originally to go to the right. Not only that, but I'm also going to make sure that whatever the size of this label is going to be as far as height is concerned, I want this always to be in the middle, okay? Now that that's done like that, when I load it into my sheet, into my project rather, it's going to ask me to override, which I'm going to say yes to. And you'll notice there's my new one. That's the new one I created. Okay, or we just created, as we saw here in the particular family of the title block family. I'm going to close this and save changes no on this thing. It's not going to affect this one because it imported it, and so now this has become a separate object from the one that's over there, unless I go ahead and say edit family. Okay, and if I, once again, if I want to change this to read whatever it is that I want, I need to go to the edit type. Okay, and I can just say C view for scale. Okay, just to change it, to see how it's actually changed. You can change it, apply it, and okay it. And as you can see, both of them are now set properly as I want it. And once again, you can go ahead and label this any way you need to in accordance to your office standards. Continuing on with this particular type of thing, let's go ahead and open up a couple of other views. I want you to see something else. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on A102 and A103 sheets here, and I will close the A101. Okay, and as you can see here, this 1/8 is showing. Okay, now the 1/8 scale is showing not because it's default and nothing else is set. It's because both of these views, okay, which make up the totality of this particular sheet, are both at 1/8 of an inch. Therefore, it changes it. If I were to actually change any one of them, let's say to 1/4, it will automatically change to, it varies. So to whatever it is, the default value that I told you it should be. So say C view for scale. Okay. The same thing happens with this one. Sorry, let's go ahead and double click on that. And let's change it over here to maybe a 3/8. Okay, it's a lot bigger, I understand, but Once again, it switches it back to there are variable scales here. It used to just read variable, no longer is the case. It is whatever you need to be according to, once again, your office standards. But at least that's the way that we are perceiving it to be designed for. Very well. Moving forward, we have show imported CAD items, okay, in the manage link dialog box. You will notice in the actual piece of the slide here, in this section of the slide, the actual managed links used to be at the end of the links, okay, a tab right here, well, not tab, sorry, I take that back. This is actually your bar section in here. Okay, it used to be at the end. It is now its own heading called manage, and it's called manage links. Okay, and it actually supports DWGs, DXFs, and DGNs. This is a SketchUp file and XAMs. It does not, however, support SATs, OBJ, 3DM, STE, step files, and STL files. So without any further ado, let's take a look and see how that looks like in our Revit. Let's go ahead and close these. Say changes no to that. And we'll go ahead and say CAD in Revit link management is the file that we're opening. In this particular file, we already have a couple of CAD objects already really they're not linked in this case. In this case, sorry, I just need to show you, they're actually imported, okay? Now, ideally, if you want to keep your project size smaller, you really don't want to load the family. What you really want to do is link it, even though both of them show up in the managed links, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at the managed links and see what that's looking like right now. As you can see right now, okay, there's a couple of things that are happening here. Okay, it's kind of looking a little bit like the AutoCAD External Reference Manager, correct? And that's because basically this particular dialog box is going to function very similarly. What do I mean by that? Well, if I see what the options in these columns are, we see that we have the full path right here, safe path. Why is it the safe path? It's because the path type is absolute, just like in AutoCAD. Okay, it's telling me what the file size are, but more than anything, it's telling me that there is one count of each, which is really, really a cool thing. Not only that, but if I actually go ahead and select any one of these, okay, it's going to actually give me additional little options, such as the reload, and I have reload from, so I can change where I'm actually loading it from, and other particular options. You have the option to reload it, you have the option to remove it, or you have the option to import an additional file. But the more interesting one to me is the actual show. Because at this point, I really don't know which one of these two it is that we're talking about. And if we had many, many more, obviously it would be even harder. But if I select it and go ahead and click on the show button, okay, I want you to keep an eye on, this is really cool. I want you to keep an eye on the count here. I'm going to say show here. Oops, and there it is. It actually zeroes in on it. You see that? Okay. Now that's interesting. That's really cool. What happens then if I select this object? Obviously, I have to unpin it if I want to do something with it. And I say, okay, I don't have one set of stairs. I have two sets of stairs. So I'm going to say, go ahead and copy it. And I'm going to copy it, arbitrarily, two additional times just to see what happens to our manage link dialog box. I have to go back over here to the inserts, obviously, and re-invoke my manage link dialog box. And look what happened. I'm just going to go ahead and shrink this a little bit. Okay, so we can have an easier time of looking at it. Look what happened. It's telling me that the stairs, which is this one right here, okay, the stairs, there are 3 of them. Now, if I come over here and say I delete not only these 2, but I go ahead and look at my manage links dialog box, the count went back to 1. You see that? Now, in AutoCAD, you would actually have to select it and then unload it, right? Or remove it. Basically, you would unload it from AutoCAD. That's how the external references work. This works a lot more intuitively. Why? Because if I actually go ahead and this is the only one left of that particular link that we have, and I delete that link, in AutoCAD, you would have to go through, jump through a lot of rings and hoops in order for you to fix that. But in Revit, it automatically deletes it from the list, which is a huge advantage to have when you're actually working with these, because a lot of the times you have those errors where you say, okay, well, you know, you have a problem there. There's an object that is missing. In this particular case, it seems like we're actually completely avoiding that. Moving on, we have now the architectural Revit features, which are starting with Topo Solid enhancements. Okay, one of the things that you can actually do to the Topo Solids nowadays is actually go ahead and give it an offset, whether it's a negative offset or a positive offset. You can actually give that to your subdivision. Not only can you do that, but you are now have the option of selecting of the type of Topo Solids that you're going to be implementing. Okay, now that is huge, especially, okay, for landscaping. This is starting to look more and more powerful. I see a lot of good things happening with this Topo Solid enhancements as the actual software improves over time. So let's take a look and see how this actually is working. Let's go ahead and close all of these. Right, and let's go ahead and open the Topo Solid, so topography. At this point, I have to tell you that I had already taken the liberty of importing a CAD file, okay? Now, I said importing because it's actually, this is the only way to see these particular options is through the import section, okay? You don't see this, if you were linked, you wouldn't be able to see the actual layers. But that's okay. For this particular case, what we're going to do is going to work perfectly. So let's go ahead and convert this into a Topo Solid. Right now, it's just a two-dimensional line work that has elevation values. So let's go into the massing and site, Topo Solid, create from import. And rather than create from a CSV, which we all know is actually a Excel spreadsheet, we're going to say create the actual Topo Solid from a CAD. And the CAD is this one right here. You'll notice that automatically, this is the default one, the Topo Solids grassland 16 inches. That means that the thickness of the actual object that we are going to be selecting is 16 inches. I'm just going to go ahead and select it so you can see what happens. It tells me, okay, what layers are you going to be using? Well, I don't need 0 layer, but I do need the topography layer. And I say, okay to that, and there it is, okay? This thickness in here is 16 inches, okay? That's so you know, 16 inches from the bottom to the top of the surface. It doesn't necessarily say that this actual sloping surface is going to be that thickness. No, that's the minimum thickness. So let's go ahead and move forward and see what can we do with this. Well, let's go ahead. First of all, in order for clarity, let's go ahead and switch this over to hidden line so we can see this a little bit better. Let's go ahead and select it. And as you can see, and you probably already know from previous issues, you know, it's pretty much like a floor slab or a roof slab, and that it gives you the ability to add points and split lines and all that other stuff. But there's an additional to Topo Solid shaping right here, which is called subdivision, simplified Topo Solid, and excavate. We're only going to be looking at the subdivision now for the sake of time. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with subdivision. Okay, it's going to ask us what shape are you going to be using. In this particular instance, I actually want to build a pool here. So let's go ahead and say rectangle. Okay, and I'm going to just lay my rectangle right about there. So this is my rectangle that has been already made. Let's go ahead and cancel this part and switch the type of material or the Topo solid object that we're going to be using to water, because we said that that's a pool, right? Let's go ahead and see that this Topo solid thickness, okay, the thickness of this object is based on the thickness of the material. You notice that the default thickness is set to 3.0, but it's actually unavailable for modification because it is controlled in the structure. This is where it's controlled. Let's go ahead and switch that to 1.5 for the sake of argument and say okay to that. So you can see that you can actually go ahead and modify them as needed. Obviously, I would prefer for you, I would in my particular flow, I change items, but not before I duplicate them. I don't like necessarily to modify any objects that are default. So let's go ahead and say okay to that. Okay, in this case, I'm just going to leave it that we're demonstrating this and we're not going to save it. Okay, before I do anything, what I will in fact do is I'm going to go ahead and copy these 4 lines to the clipboard. Okay, and I'm going to say check mark, I'm done with this. Okay, as you can see right here, there is my Topo solid. Okay, it's already set. If I switch it over to the realistic, there is my Topo solid already placing. What you're looking at, this line here is actually, sorry, let me just go ahead and, in actuality, it's going to be, these set of lines that you're seeing in actuality are your Topo solids from DWG. I'm just going to go ahead and hide that to make it a little bit more, well, I'm just going to leave it. Let's go ahead and move forward. They really don't have a lot of time in selecting things that I don't want. Let's go ahead and now, remember, we actually went ahead and took the actual perimeter of the pool and we copied it over to the clipboard because at this point, we're going to use it to do another subdivision, okay? Now, the subdivision is going to be, I'm going to switch over here to the site plan top view, and I'm going to paste those 4 objects that we had earlier. Okay, align to current view, and there they are. Okay, now that I've got that in there, right? I'm going to say select, and I'm going to give it a 6-foot offset in order to create my deck, and I start offsetting my edges. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is it that it's coming in segmented when I went ahead and drew it as a single piece? Is that you have to remember, I am now looking at a sloped object. Therefore, these segments actually follow the slope at this point, not the extrusion, it's the segments. And obviously, in order to finish this, I need to close this, such as this. Okay, and I'm going to assign, let's go ahead and say wood planks here. Let's give it an inch offset. Okay, and let's go ahead and say apply, and let's say check mark, and there it is. How does it look like? Well, let's take a look at 3D, and there you have it. Now, you will notice that I can select, after the fact, I can select my pool and say this is going to be a -6-inch offset. Right? When I hit apply, it actually gives it to you. You can also do it on the creation aspect of it. I just happened to have forgotten, so I went ahead and decided to show it after the fact to let you see that you are not stuck with a workflow that everything has to be done at the beginning. You can actually do it at a later stage. Got to remember to do it if that is what you want, though. Okay. With that, this is the end of the topos. And let's move forward and look at the allowed compound structures without core layers. Allowed compound structures without core layers. Compound is the key. Even though it's showing a wall, compounds can be walls, can be floor slabs, can be roof slabs. You remember that you can actually make layers for those, and that's what we're talking about, okay? And so at this point, you'll see there's several layers, but this particular wall has no core. Let's go ahead and see exactly how that works in Revit. Let's go ahead and close all of these. And let's go ahead and open. walls without core. I did take a little bit of a liberty here, and I went ahead and copied this particular wall, which is a basic wall, class wall. By the way, this is taken from our class files. So this particular wall is one of the ones that we designed in our class, and I copied it 3 times. And I did 3 different things to each one of the copies of the original. Okay, as you can see, I have reveals and I have sweeps. So what I've gone and done in order to get you to understand this a little bit better, I went ahead and took one, which is called the exterior for the sake of clarity. Okay, and I removed not only the interior side, but I removed all of the core. Although I left the sweeps and I left the reveals, because they are now attached to this. That's just part of the exterior wall layer, as I've called it, exterior only. Okay. What I did to this one is I removed the exterior and the interior, but left the core. Okay, as it is stated in the name, core only. And on the third one, I did the same thing as I did to the first one, but I reversed it. Interior only is left, everything else is deleted. Okay. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and say, oh, and I also left one sweep, by the way. Now that I remember, this particular baseboard is actually a sweep. All right. So you can get pretty detailed on this. And I've also told you before in the slide view that the slabs are also compounds. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what happens to that. This particular slab is part of a grouping. So I have to open in the grouping for editing. I select my slab and I come over here to the edit type and I go to the structure. And in the structure, we see that we've got some 4 elements here, which is the concrete lightweight and the structural decking. Okay, let's go ahead and delete those 2 and see what happens. And just like I said, this particular item for the core not needing, for the compound objects not needing core is not just true for walls, it's true for floor slabs, and it is also true for roof slabs. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this out. Save changes no, so we have this back. And let's take a look at our next subject. Create walls by room and segments. This is has been a really nice addition, okay? But there are some things that you need to be aware of, okay? Which is much easier for me to show you in the actual demonstration than it would be for me to explain it here, okay? So please understand, exclusions are curtain walls, ellipses, faces, and in-place walls cannot be used. In-place walls, I believe it's actually talking about the face-based walls when you use massings. Very well, let's see this in Revit. Go ahead and close this. Save changes no to this. Very well. Here we have predefined what's called a room, okay, and we added a room object to it, which is the X, as we already know. This is the room object, okay? So when we come over here to walls, we go ahead and see that we have 2 new options, place by room and place by segment, right? Now, these 2 are very important, and let's go and see exactly how these 2 work. Let's go ahead and say place by room. Now, by definition, the parameter says that it's a place by room, so you would expect it to work automatically, such as this. You'll notice that my actual wall, oops, I keep selecting more walls, sorry about that. Okay, that's the single wall. There's the wall that I decided to go ahead and attach. You will notice that it has an automatic alignment, okay? So this works. Let's go ahead and undo this. And let's go ahead and erase the room, right? And see if it works again, because we said it's by room, right? So let's go ahead and walls. We go place rooms, and it works. See that? Now, the question that happens to be is, why does it work? Well, it's for a very simple reason. If I actually select any walls or any slabs or any roofs by that matter, they're all room bounding. Those objects are the ones that help define rooms, okay, or the perimeter of a room. So that being the case, each one of these has an option called room bounding. Let's go ahead and remove it from this one. And let's see what happens when we go back and do the same thing, saying that we're going to be placing it by room. Look what happened. Because it's considering that this room is actually open-ended. So can I use place by segment? Absolutely. And the reason why you can use place by segment is because these are room bounding. Notice that I can't do it on this one because this one's not. Okay, let's go ahead and undo that. Okay, and let's go ahead and make this a room bounding object again. And let's go ahead and place an opening here. Okay, and that's our opening. I'm just going to go ahead and create a 3D to make sure that, first of all, that my room opening goes to the floor. The one thing that I would like you to please remember is that when anything is actually defining a room, it's actually based on the floor plan. It's not based on the ceiling. It's not space. It's on the floor plan. So what's going to happen is the reason for it is what I just told you. Okay, and we'll see it. Before I go ahead and do that, though, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that these walls are now connected to level 2. Okay, which is great. Let's go back to level 1. By the way, this only works in floor plans. So you can't do it in 3D. Okay, so that's why I'm switching back to floor plans. I'm going back to walls. Okay, and I'm going to say place by room. And once again, I can't do it. The reason why is what I told you. This particular opening is all the way to the floor. Okay, so if I actually went ahead and took the opening and made it a little bit smaller, meaning it doesn't go to the floor, and if I come over here to level 1 and then redefine the particular inner walls by place by room, it actually sees it. You see that? Notice what's happening here though. Okay, it's not respecting the opening. That's okay. This is actually going to be have a great impact a little bit later on. But let's go ahead and keep working with this. Let's go ahead and take a look at 3D now, and let's go ahead and set this back to be way beyond. And so the question becomes is, how do we actually resolve this? We resolve this by using a room separator, which is non-geometrical, but the software knows that the room stops here. And we're going to say to the midpoint here and to the midpoint there. Okay, now I'm using the midpoint on purpose because I want you to see something really cool that's going to happen. Okay, let's go ahead and place by room. It's a little bit faster. And look what happened. It actually placed the inner wall and it ends it right at the opening edge. You see that? So it's actually, in this case, it's respecting that, which is really, really cool. I'm going to go ahead and undo that because I want you to see something else that you need to be aware of. There is a solution, and I'll show you the solution, but there is something that you need to be aware of, okay? Let's go ahead and now go ahead and place a window and a door. Let's go ahead, window, facing to the outside, obviously. And let's go ahead and place a door. Okay, facing to the inside, right? Because it's a little bit more obvious of what's going to happen. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead and say walls. We're going to stay by room. It's a little easier than by place because I don't want to go ahead one by one by one by one. Okay, place by room. Let's go ahead and switch this to level 2, and I'm going to go ahead and select that. Look at what happened. It doesn't respect the openings. You see that? It respects it here, but it doesn't respect it there and here. There is a solution, okay? And the solution is this. Oops, I'm making way too many walls. Sorry about that. I got maybe one. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, the solution is to actually join these two objects. So I can go to modify, I go to join, and I say I'm going to join this wall with this wall, and now automatically it fixes it. Okay, notice that because the wall is this particular door is placed on the CMU wall, it actually hinges on the CMU. Be careful of this. Okay, this is very important for you to know. So you cannot let that happen if your design is going to suffer for it. So we need to actually, when I see if I can come up with a solution for this, we'll go ahead and do that, show it to you, or make a blog out of it. Or if Autodesk happens to come up with an update that corrects this, we'll see what happens. And you'll notice also the same thing is happening to the window. The window actually goes to the actual core, which would have been the core. It doesn't go all the way through. There should be some sort of a frame happening here, okay? And with that, we have seen placement of walls by room or segments. Now we have the customized layer priority in compound structures. Once again, it's about the compound structures. Once again, we're talking about walls, floors, and ceilings, okay? So rather than explain all of this, okay, let's go ahead and take a look and see what this does. You'll notice in this little, little AVI that is actually embedded in the slide, there is a new priority column that has been added to the assembly dialog box, okay? And there used to be in brackets, so it would be finish 1 bracket 5 bracket. This didn't exist. What they've done is they've moved the bracket 5 bracket to its own actual column, which allows it to be editable, because it wasn't editable before. If you change the function, you've changed the function. You also change the priority, the cut priority. And please remember, the lower the number, the higher the priority. The higher the number, the lower the priority when it talks to cut. But there is a caveat that you need to be aware of. Let's go ahead and move and see how it's done in Revit. Go ahead and close all of these once again. Save changes, no. And there's material cut priority right there. And this is what we're talking about, okay? In this particular case, I happen to know that there is a baseboard on this wall, and it's right here. That's where this particular wall is meeting up against. So this particular wall is actually not cutting all the way to the core. Let's go ahead and make sure that it does that by pulling the point or the grip and pushing it where it is. Now you'll notice that what? It's actually now folding my chipboard, right, into the wall, so it actually is continuous, but this core does not merge with this core. And the reason for that is nothing more than this. If I select the actual wall and I go to the edit types in the structure edit, this particular structure core is set to 1, but it's called metal stud layer. That's the material on it, okay? If I actually look at the receiving wall and I go to the edit type, structure edit, you'll notice that the structure is also priority 1 as it was in the other one, but the material is different. So you have to be careful, because the material also has an influence in how these particular pieces merge, whether they're cut priority or not. The material also has an influence. I'm going to go ahead and say cancel here. Okay, and let's go ahead and back to this one and change this into CMU, and let's see what happens. Okay. Double click on it. It's now structure 1, priority 1, concrete masonry, okay, and okay. And now it merges. You will notice that it doesn't merge with this one, because if I go to this one, it basically has the same setup. Okay, but that's metal stud. You see that? So with that, we see that, yes, it goes ahead and it merges, everything is perfect, but you need to be careful, because for some reason, for some reason, I actually do see the logic. The material that is on that particular object that you define to be equal to the other object's priority cut, the material is different. The cut might be the same, but the material is different. Therefore, it creates a line for you. Okay, there is no unification of actual faces as it is with this chipboard here and this chipboard there, right? In next one, or the next enhancement that we want to look at, is going to be sheet collections, custom parameters and schedules. Okay, there has been an additional set of parameters that have been hardwired into Revit that allows you to do and see and extract more information from the sheets themselves. Okay, so rather than once again going ahead through a huge explanation of all of this, I think it's a lot better for us to see it working. So let's go ahead and go to Revit. Close this up. And let's go ahead and open new parameters and categories sheet schedules. In this particular project, I've gone ahead and defined a sheet list, which is really where all of this is going to be collected to. And we see that we have 3 sheets. Okay, it's giving us the sheet height, the sheet width, and the name, and the scale. Okay, more importantly than for me to show you this is how it's actually this working. So let's go ahead and first of all, let's go ahead and invoke a different sheet so we can actually go ahead and erase this particular schedule. Okay, and let's go ahead and close this. Okay, and let's go ahead and delete the item. Okay, once deleted, we can then definitely come over to level 1 here. Okay, let's go over to view. And in view, we'll schedules, and this is where we're talking about, okay, sheet list. Okay, we need to make sure that the available fields are going to be relevant to sheets. And as we can see here towards the bottom, we have a few additional items. Sheet width, sheet number is always there, the height, okay, collections, scale. Let's go ahead and add, let's go ahead and say sheet name. Okay, let's say sheet number. Where the hell is my sheet number? I know that it's in here somehow, somewhere. Okay, collection height, issue date, width, scale drawn by current version, count checked by. Okay, well let's go ahead and just go ahead and add the sheet width. Let's go ahead and the sheet height. Okay, and let's go ahead and add the number. Let's move the number up to the top here. Here's the sheet name, sheet width, and let's go ahead and add the scale just for the sake of argument. And let's put that after name. Okay, let's go ahead and sort this by sheet number and say okay to that. And here it is. Okay, very much like a standard Revit schedule, you can group them and name them as you please. Okay. So once again, this has been hardwired. You don't have to actually create any labels or anything like that. It has been hardwired directly into your Revit. Let's move to the next topic, which is view to sheet positions and auto placement. This one is really useful when you actually want to keep your views aligned depending on type. Okay, so let's go ahead and rather than explain a lot of things as we've been doing, let's show it to you. It's a lot easier to understand when we're being shown. So let's move over to Revit once again. Go ahead and close our views here. Save changes no to this. And let's go ahead and open save views on sheets. And let's go ahead and A101, A102, let's go ahead and tile this. By the way, shortcuts, for those of you who don't know, W for window, T for tile gives you that, and Z for zoom, A for all, this gives you a zoom all. Okay, now this item has been already placed, okay, using the save position with option 2, as is this one. Okay. There seems to be a slightly different positioning. If we use the edges of the actual title block as guides, there is a slight difference of position. The difference of position is nothing more than this. This is what we would call a duplicate as a dependent. So this is actually part of one big view, and the origin of the big view is actually over here. That's why it's shifted like that, okay? That's the only reason, okay? If I actually go ahead and select the actual view here, okay, I can go to, say, to edit position, and it gives me a couple of abilities. I can actually come in and switch the actual point of insertion for the object, rather than the center of the object, which is actually depicted by these little dots that are in gray. When selected, they turn into orange. Okay, so I just switched this one to view origin because this is the setting. These are the settings for this particular view, save position 2, as far as the anchor is concerned, not the view. The anchor, the view is different. The anchor has been switched to the edge here, or the origin point, which is somewhere over here. And I say check mark. We have a shifting of the objects. You see that? They have shifted now. All right. The origin of this one is further to the west, or to the west, correct? All right. So that's why that's happening. Now, the question now becomes is, well, what happens if I have this one and I have this one, which is option 2, but I want to place another one down here? Well, that's really easy. Well, so let's go ahead and do that by, I've actually preset it, but we're going to actually go ahead and make sure that it's set to none, these two views right here. And we're going to use the south view and the north view as examples. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that the north view, just got to make sure what this is. This is the north dimension. Okay, this is the north. This is a little bit different. This is the dimensions elevation, and this is my controlling elevation. So I'm going to go ahead and place it first of all. Okay, and I'm just going to place it maybe there. I can move it anytime I want, but I'm going to say that this is a safe position, and we're going to call it this one sections 2. Oops, that at, but 2. Okay, we'll say okay to that. All right, and then we're going to assign options to the south elevation, okay, by going over here to the properties. Even before we place it, options 2. Oops, not options 2. I take that back. It's sections 2. So when I drop it, and I'm going to be purposely, I'm going to drop it up here. Watch what happens. Bloop, right where it's supposed to be by definition of the saved view position. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful little addition to the actual control levels that we have for view placements on our sheets. And now, last but not least, the enhancements and family substitutions with Twinmotion. This is, I happen to like this because I love the rendering aspects of Twinmotion, but this one was very difficult to do in Twinmotion, but it's a lot easier to do here. So let's through this particular new workflow that they define by adding this enhancement of family substitution. So let's see how it works. Let's close all of these. Save changes, no. Let's open up our Twinmotion. Let's go ahead and adjust my view a little bit. It's a little too high. And let's go ahead and select this particular Corbusier chair. And if we look at it, the actual substitution method is actually applied to the style itself, not to the instance. Okay, so I have to go to the style type, and it's at the bottom. You'll see the twin substitution dialog box, which is a little dialog box that tells you exactly which of these objects it is that I have selected. Okay, I can switch it to any one of them that I want. We're going to leave it as this one. Actually, let's go ahead and say Olympia seat and say okay. So now it's the Olympia seat. We'll say okay. So if I go to this one over here, because it is a style, it is the same thing. Okay, the particular carpet has also been assigned a substitution carpet right there. Okay, but there is something that needs to be seen, okay, in order for us to understand exactly what's happening. And the more that I get to play with this and understand it a bit more, I'm sure that there's a way of actually controlling the position, but I want you to see this anyway. Make sure that you are aware of all of this. So let's go ahead and come over. Oops, sorry, I need to stay here. And I need to go ahead into my view, and I need to launch my twin motion. Okay, it takes a little bit. I've been noticing that sometimes, oops, sorry about that. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than I want to. Okay, please give us a moment. Here it is. Okay, this is one thing that I wanted you to see, and one of the reasons why I was so adamant in seeing this, because sometimes it kind of goes to the other screen that I have, but I would have pulled it in because I needed you to see this. This enable substitution. If you don't have this invoked, it's not going to work. This is important. Okay, so I'm just going to say okay to this. And here is my object. Let's go ahead and select some things that I don't want and delete them. So we leave just our model. You'll notice that this door, okay, right here is not the same as the one I have here. Let's go ahead into the south elevation. It's not the same door. Actually, this is a standard single flush door, okay, that has been told to be replaced by a single rotating 10-inch door. You see that? Interesting, rotating, very cool thing that you're going to see in a couple of seconds, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and say cancel here, go back to the 3D and go back to my twin motion and watch what happens to those doors as I approach them. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure. Oh my God, that to me is super cool. Super, super cool. The doors open, they're animated. So it's just great for presentations. You remember I told you about the placement of the objects there. They don't come out where they're supposed to. You see that? These chairs, this is not where I wanted the chairs. They actually should have been on these positions here. Okay, and the carpet definitely should not be there. It should be over here. You see that? Okay, so you have to be careful. So what happens if in the middle of something, we decided that we actually want some standard chairs rather than fancy chairs like this. Okay, well, so how do we actually change that? Well, we come over here to edit type, we say Olympia seat, and well, guess what? That's not what I want. By the way, you should take note, this is the actual way that I'm noticing is the actual workflow. I go ahead and clear the selection and say, okay, because if I don't have the other selections. It's just the I would say living room type chairs. Okay, these are not necessarily living room type chairs, although everything is listed here, okay? I want this cocoon chair. So now it's going to be replaced with the cocoon chair. I say, okay. When I come back over here to my twin motion, oops, I forgot to say synchronize. My fault. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, go here to synchronize, and I come back to my twin motion, and guess what? But here's the problem. I promise you I will find out how they resolve this or how to resolve this, and I will actually make a blog about this because this is a little bit on the really tiresome side that you have to, every time you replace something, you have to shift it. It's kind of insane. Okay, as you know, in twin motion, replacing materials is rather simple. Okay. The other thing that I really did want you to see, I'm going to switch this over to my level 1 here. And I have these trees out here. Okay, these trees are the Causa dogwood 10-foot, okay, which have been replaced with the pomegranate. Okay, now this is the thing that I actually like about this. If I actually needed to change the sizes here in Revit, I would actually have to create a separate duplicate of this object and then change the size. Otherwise, I change them all because it's in the style. Okay, not so in twin motion, which makes it a lot easier for us to create more variations in our presentation drawings. Let's go ahead and switch over from here to a top view. Okay, and these are the trees in question. These are the pomegranates. But the beauty of this is that I can change the actual age of the tree, and I can change the rotation of the tree separate from each one, even though, okay, they're actually the same tree in Revit. They're not necessarily the same tree here in Twinmotion. So if I switch back to our 3D view, oops, sorry, wrong one. There we go. Now we can see a little bit more variation in the trees outside. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of our presentation of some of the new features of Revit 2026. And I shall now turn it over to my good friend Alan for continuation and closure. Alan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Jim. So getting here just past the top of the hour, so we do not have time for questions, but if you do have questions following this presentation, you can send those over to us at info@ddscad.com. Go ahead and jump over to that next slide, Jim. So
Yes, sir.
just in closing here, thank you all so much for being here today. Again, here's our contact info for any questions, concerns, 305-445-6480 and info@ddscad.com. If you're interested in reaching out to us regarding your software needs, training needs, support needs, anything of that nature as well. And please do go ahead and send over those AIA numbers again, as we mentioned previously. Okay, thank you all for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great one. Be safe, guys.